Look, when I first read this report in the Irish Times on this, which was the first one that was flagged up to the people of this country, and very much the tone of the report was to say, there's no whitewash here, there's nothing going on, move on, there's no problem, there's too much panic about something that isn't really a problem. I immediately felt sick in my stomach because it reminded me very much of the litany of offences that the women who suffered from the anti-D serum, the hepatitis C scandal, went through for years and years at the hands of this state, under, at the time, the current Minister for Finance, Michael Noonan. And then we listened to the evidence of the women who suffered from symphysiotomy, many of whom are dead, by the way. We couldn't hear their evidence. And some of those who gave evidence to us at the time when the scandal was breaking have died since. And I do want to pay tribute to those women and their families who fought for truth and justice in this case, and whom I'm afraid are going to have to continue to fight for truth and justice, because the truth isn't out and justice has certainly not even been attempted to be granted to these women by this Harding-Clark report. I think it is a whitewash. I think it is utterly disgraceful, and I think it is totally prejudiced against those women who suffered from the violation of their bodies in this manner. And I want to thank at this point Mary Enright for she's an academic who has done some brilliant work in highlighting how flawed this report is. So just to say that of the 275 pages of this report, 133 are commentary from the judge herself. 142 are extracts from medical literature. She assessed applications from 600 women who believed that they were subject to symphysiotomy. She oversaw searches of hospital records and medical tests, and then she allocated payments according to what she believed were just €50,000 in some cases, 100,000, to those whom she believed could link symphysiotomy to ongoing life health consequences, and so on and so forth. Mary Enright, however, does point out to us that the extensive defence of what is a uniquely Irish practice of non-emergency dealing with women in pregnancy is not an independent report, and that survivors are entitled to more under international law. And I want to agree with her entirely on this, because what is independent about a report that spends over a whole chapter criticising and condemning women who claimed that they had a symphysiotomy mistakenly, and spends less time actually looking at why did doctors carry out this practice? And here I want to argue that the reason they carried out this practice was rooted in the conservative Catholic nature of Irish society, and not just the Church itself, but how that is linked to the very operation of everything that happens with the state, crucially in the health service. And so therefore you find the Sinn Féin deputy made reference to it earlier on, a very heavy concentration of the use of this procedure in somewhere like Our Lady of Lourdes Hospital in Drogheda, that was dominated by an ethos of Catholicism, but linked very clearly to the role that the state play in dealing with women. And Deputy Coppinger has gone through it, how the state have dealt with women on many issues, from abortion to contraception. But in the 1970s and beyond, when these operations were being carried out, doctors probably thought to themselves, with their Catholic head on them and with some discussion with management in the hospitals, if a woman is in trouble in her pregnancy, break her hip bone so that she can easily have more children. Don't put her through a caesarean section, because it's harder to have more children if you go through that procedure. What we want out of this country is for women to have more and more children. Childbirth is fundamental to what you are as a woman in Catholic Ireland in the 1970s. And symphysiotomy guaranteed that women could have more children, and that process of reproduction, that your body being used to reproduce more human beings, would not be interfered with. And this is what goes to the heart of what Mary Enright points out, and is ignored entirely by the report. Therefore, the report, by its very nature, is flawed, because it fails to deal with that direct consequence of the linkage between church and state, particularly in the health service and on the question of women's reproductive rights. We're not going to interview a doctor who's going to admit, well, yeah, actually, I thought to myself, I think this woman should have loads more babies, so I broke her hip bone to guarantee that that would happen. But that would actually have been enshrined in the ethos of the hospital and the management of maternity services at the time. And one of the reasons it was enshrined in it is also linked to the fact that women didn't have access to contraception. So the judge refers to women who went on to say that they suffered pain in sexual intercourse for up to a year afterwards, but that didn't stop them having more babies. Hello? I mean, all that says to you is that they had sexual intercourse without contraception and they suffered pain in sexual intercourse because it was understood at the time that that was your role in life, was to have more babies and to do it and to do so regardless. And the fact that they had no access to contraception or abortion, I think, is crucially linked to how they were treated. So there are a lot of not just, I think, misinterpretation and opportunities in dealing with this. I think we need a new report, I think we need a new study, and I think we need a new attitude to those countless women who suffered, and really suffered, physical, emotional pain, and also suffered from what was identified in one of the testimonies, in many of the testimonies, as distress and powerlessness. Think about that. Distress and powerlessness, and your body is being used as almost like an experimentation in a medical practice that will guarantee that future generations will be procreated. Don't go near C-section, don't go near surgery. Use a procedure that will make sure that women can have more babies, and that's what is at the heart of this, and that is what's been missed. And what's really, if you like, add an insult to injury, is that the judge can say, well, yours is worth 50,000, yours is worth 10,000, and you, I hardly believe it all, and you didn't suffer an awful lot. The judge should be coming out with a report that utterly and totally condemns the system of symphysiotomy, the hospitals that oversaw it, and the health service that continues to try to whitewash it and do these women down. I just want to say hats off to those women for fighting. It must be a very difficult thing to do.
Okay, we move on to Independent for Change.